We are up to tip number 5 in my list of things that you must do to become an amazing guitar player. Tip number 5 is you must learn to improvise lead guitar. You need to be able to listen to a chord progression and create your own lead on the fly. And that's not as magical as it may sound. You're actually just taking pieces that you've practiced endlessly and arranging them in a new, original, somewhat spontaneous composition. In the mid-70s, Pat Travers was one of the top guitar heroes. I remember an interview he gave way back then. He said the band's set list was complete with note-for-note memorized leads. So even on a bad night, he had no problem delivering a professional performance. But on the great nights, he could improvise and always had the safety of a memorized lead to fall back on if necessary. As you build your song list, you'll find that the most difficult part of playing cover material is duplicating the lead guitar parts. That's where improvising comes in really handy. Initially, learn to do your own thing. Improvise the complete lead. And then over time, you can start throwing in a few signature riffs from the original recording to sound like the actual lead. Now, we've all been to concerts and even heard the original artist playing a lead that was virtually unrecognizable. That's possibly because they had never played the recorded lead from beginning to end, even in the original recording session. The lead in Comfortably Numb is often credited as being the greatest rock guitar lead of all time. What you may not know is the original recording was actually a composite of several takes. David Gilmour has described this session like this. He ran through the lead several times, recording each take on a different track. Then he spent time listening to each of the tracks. After the recording was completed, he listened to each take and made notes about which were the best parts. For the final mix, he knew which faders to move and what was being played on each track. So what is arguably the best lead of all time was a composite and not actually played from beginning to end in the original recording. It was patched together from a series of improvisations. Learning to improvise lead guitar begins with mastering scales. The next step is memorize guitar licks borrowed from other players. Add to that sequences and arpeggios, and you have the recipe for spontaneous lead improvisations. You can learn to improvise lead guitar just as you've learned other skills associated with guitar. You get better with practice. Spend some time this week improvising leads over rhythm tracks. It will make your hour of practice time fly by and make you feel more like an artist than a practicing musician. Put on the track, turn down the lights, and get lost in your music. Let's begin the lesson. Exercise 1 is called Never Too Late. Use the backing track to this one to practice improvising lead guitar. Play all 5 patterns of the A minor pentatonic scale over this backing track. This one is really straightforward. You'll be able to use the A minor bar chord to play along with the open E minor and C. In the 7th measure, and that's not counting the intro measure, the last 2 chords are simply the C major moving up the neck with the 1st and 3rd strings remaining open. I know that sounds complicated, but just play the C major chord like this and leave the 3rd string open as it is now and the 1st string open and just move it up like this. And it sounds very pretty.